Today, we're going to talk about housing affordability and how much of a problem this really is. St. Tammany Parish, and where I live, for those of you, today we're going to talk about housing affordability and how much of a problem this really is. And is there even a solution for it? And what can be done with it? So, in the area that I live, which is already really exploding. So, if you're watching this and you live further away, I live in an area called St. Tammany Parish. And when Hurricane Katrina hit some 20 years ago, really the only area in and around New Orleans that didn't get totally smashed was St. Tammany Parish, especially the western side of St. Tammany Parish. And a lot of people, the eastern side got hit pretty dang hard, but the western side of St. Tammany Parish made it out okay. And that turned into a place where so many people moved. And then more and more and more people moved there. And so now we have horrible traffic problems. We have all sorts of issues, and especially West St. Tammany Parish. But West St. Tammany in general, but especially West St. Tammany, is probably the most affluent parish in Louisiana. A study came out that said we need 17,000 more homes by 2030. And so we're already like dealing with crazy traffic, crazy, like just a huge influx of people that we're having a hard time keeping up with. There's flooding issues and other issues like that because the infrastructure is not being built as fast as neighborhoods are being built. And now the people are starting to get really frustrated with it, and they don't want any more neighborhoods. They don't want any more homes. And yet, St. Tammany Parish needs 17,000 new homes by 2030. Now, what does all this have to do with housing affordability? Well, obviously, if you don't have enough homes, the price of a home goes up just due to supply and demand. But what's the average sales price in St. Tammany Parish? Well, it's um, depending on where you look, about $300,000. So, what does it take to own a $300,000 home in St. Tammany Parish? Well, the minimum. This is if you don't have a lot of other debt. If you got great credit, if you don't have a lot of other debt, if like the minimum to just get by with current interest rates, you need to be making 85 grand a year to get into like the average home. Now then, how much does the average family make in the most affluent area of St. Tammany? Like the affluent area of Louisiana? Well, the average family is making about 80. So the minimum to afford an average house is 85, but it really suggests like 105, just in case something happens. If you're making 85, buying the average home with current interest rates, and our insurance is still through the roof, we got all sorts of other problems. And 85 is the minimum. They really recommend six figures, 105. The average family's making 80, and so the average family can't really afford the average home. They just can't. And with the average family not being able to afford the average home, if the average person pays 6% to sell that average home, that's $18,000. And that's 23% of the average family's income for the year. 23% of the average family's income from a year. So the average family making 80 grand a year, 18,000 is 22.5% of that. You wonder why housing is unaffordable. And how do we solve this problem? Because if you think this is not a problem that demands to be solved, you're really not paying attention to the underlying issues here. Um, I never talk politics. No one knows my politics. But if you really think about it, the same underlying problems that get a President Trump elected are the same underlying problems that got Mamdani elected in New York City. These people could not be further apart politically, Mamdani and Trump. Okay. Like, I don't think there's a person in the world who like loves the politics of both of those people at the same time. You're either very far left or very far right. And so at the end of the day, people flock to them for the same reasons. They talked about affordability. They talked about losing the American dream. They talked about how everything is just out of reach for people. The average first time home buyer is now 38 years old. I mean, I mean, how do you even have kids? How do you do these things? And this is, I mean, as it gets more and more out of reach, as the American dream of owning a home, starting a family, doing all these things, things that a couple of generations ago people used to do in their early 20s, now we can't afford to do it until we're 40. If you think that this will not have massive societal impacts, you're crazy. If you are 55, 60 years old and you've done great for yourself and you're heading into retirement and you're thinking, well, they'll figure it out, they might figure it out at your expense, you know. Um, and I'm not trying to be alarmist here, but it could get pretty bad. And these are the things that I don't understand. If we can help at 1% list, if we can help solve any of those problems, why wouldn't we? Especially if you can be more profitable doing it. Um, we've had two back-to-back meetings with agents who work for us. One guy is in the top 0.0001% of all real estate agents in the country. He did 128 deals last year by himself. Um, if all the agents in his market charging massive fees think they are making more money than him, trust me, they're not. It's not close. They're probably the average agent up there is might be making a tenth of what he makes. We had that was 2 months ago. That was in March. Our most recent one was with Eric Tidmore, who in within a year has amassed almost 70 active listings. Trust me, all the other agents in Chattanooga, where he resides, are not doing as well as he is financially. They're not doing as well from a GCI standpoint, not even close. And so this all begs the question that if you can help solve this problem, why wouldn't you? Especially if it'll make you more successful, especially if it'll make you more money. When I talk to the average real estate agent who think they hate what we do by charging people less money, when you ask them, what are your real stressors? What really stresses you out as a real estate agent? For most of them, it's, well, I don't know when my next deal coming is going to come. I don't know when I'm going to get paid again. I have nothing in my pipeline. I don't know what's going on. I'm now forced. Do I work more and more and more hours to try to find a deal, or with no check coming in for the foreseeable future, do I swipe my credit card to go buy some leads? What do I do? The answer is not hard. It's just list a bunch of houses. And the answer to listing a bunch of houses is doing things the way we do it. We've proven it. Like, I could make a video explaining it, but look up our agents that are not buying leads. They're not giving out huge referrals to billion-dollar companies, and they have 20, 30, 40, 50. Eric's got 68 active listings. I mean, the proof is there. I don't need to plead my case anymore. If you don't believe it, Google it. But the crazy thing is, talking to Eric is pulling so many buyers off of all of his listings that his average commission is north of 2%. Just because he's pulling in all of these listings at a lower fee, but that leads to buyers that are more work and more effort, and thus he charges a higher fee for them. And that's understandable. It's reasonable. That's not a crazy thing. So at the end of the day, if you're watching this, and I've talked to numerous agents recently, I've talked to agents that have been watching what we're doing for the past 5 years with this franchise, and they're like, they even say, I've been trained to get people to pay 2.5%, 3%, but it's kind of giving me the ick whenever I show up to the closing, knowing what I did to earn that money. I'm kind of getting the ick. Like I'm kind of feeling like this is really unjustified. And after talking to real leaders in the real estate industry recently, not naming names, but talking to real leaders in the real estate industry. These are people that are not just top producers. These are people running incredibly productive teams. These are people that are in multiple states. I have not met a single one who looks at the landscape of AI and everything that's coming, and they say to themselves, "Oh yeah, we're going to be charging 3.5% in the coming years." I don't know anyone who believes that. I don't know a soul. So we have a massive problem that's here and waiting to be solved. You will make more money, you will be more successful, you will be more productive, and you will feel better doing business this way when you're saving people money. If you still don't want to do it, I hope you have a game plan come 2030 for what you're doing. Because if you think it's charging huge fees to list homes, I don't think it's going to happen. But if it does, we'll just continue to enjoy our head start of what we're doing. This is Grant Clayton, CEO of 1% Lists. Hope you have a great day.